I don't know why my graphics suck. I'm gonna.
Hey everybody, welcome to What Drives Us, episode 164. For November 18th, 2015, I had to look at the computer to see what the date was. My name is still Russell Frost, and I didn't have to look at the computer for that, and this week I have an enormous panel. I just feel really manly saying that. And for the first time in I don't know how long, I am not hosting this show by myself. My co-pilot, my friend, Danny Cooper, is back.
Hello, everybody. Good to be back. Thanks for welcoming me back with somewhat open arms, except for Tony, probably.
Bastard.
Was that a good thing that he just said?
I don't even know what it was supposed to be.
Okay. I'm cool. And look at this huge panel we have. Look at all those people down there. Let's introduce them and get started because we have a ton of ground to cover this week. So starting on my left, I guess it depends on which way the screen's flipped. He is a hybrid mechanic, an EV mechanic, which is really kind of calling Paul a mechanic isn't really very fair. He owns Boulder Hybrid Conversions. His name is Paul Guzik.
Hey everybody, glad to be back and curious to hear about this new Toyota car that Danny was driving around the other day. So,
actually, we're not going to talk about that.
No.
I couldn't tell him that until the show started.
All right. Well, it was good to be on this week, guys. Thanks for having me.
See you
later. See. Okay. Next.
If I'm not here for my own self-promotion, why am I here?
Why indeed, Mr. Cooper? Why indeed? Why are any of us here? It's a good question that I probably don't want to delve too deeply into at the beginning of the show because I don't want anyone just to get bored and leave. So next up, our man in the Pacific Northwest. His name is Patrick Connor.
Hello from Portland, where our city council passed a ban on oil trains. And it's a completely meaningless ban because they're covered by federal law, and a city council ban means absolutely nothing. But way to go, Portland.
Cool.
This is sort of like the governors banning Syrian refugees, even though they have no control over it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe not quite as bad.
Yeah, nowhere near as bad.
Morally in the right direction of which things we would like.
But they're only banning trains full of Syrian refugees.
Yeah. No trains. Oh, God. Well, speaking
in Alabama, that's what
speaking of trains full of Syrian refugees, next up, our man in Chicago. His name is Tony Schaefer.
Okay, I want to make it very clear to everyone that it has been a very long time since I have smuggled refugees in trains, so that is an unfair characterization.
You can use pretty much any segue to go to Tony.
And I do.
Yes.
And I do. And last and definitely not least, our man north of the border. He may not be a Mountie, but he is a superstar in his own right, Mr. Mark Coughlin.
Hello, everyone. Greetings from the Great White North. And let's not delay and get into the show.
Oh, right to the point. Well, here's where I do a really cool hosting thing. And it's sort of payback because, I've been up here by myself kind of doing the soft shoe and talking and all that. So, Danny, why don't you tell us about the 4th generation Prius?
2-minute topics, maybe, first?
And I just go away.
You're going to skip the 2-minute topics?
I don't think he cares anymore.
I don't think he cares at all about 2-minute topics.
He wants to put Danny to work right away.
I think he really missed me.
Yeah, I think Danny can intro the 2-minute topics then.
Well, all right. Well, let's start with you, Patrick. What's your 2-minute
What?
topic?
Oh, I
today?
don't have one. No, it's
Oh.
no, I do have a 2-minute topic.
Go,
And
Patrick.
yes, let me pull up the article here. So this was an article. Someone had flown into Portland and arranged to rent a Fiat 500e for their car while they were here in Portland. And then, having flown in, never driven a electric car before, not having any of the membership cards needed, not even having the apps on their phone to know where to find the charging stations, they had a lot of complaints about membership cards, finding charging stations, and how to charge electric cars. So this is in Mashable, and the author's name is
Nick James.
Nick James, right? So he complains about the car being small. Okay, well that's the same. Whether it's the gas car or the electric car. If you wanted a bigger car, rent a bigger car. Then someone commented that it looks like he was driving around in a toy. Again, that's the car you rented. Yeah, what's the surprise here? And after all these complaints, at the end, he talks about how he really enjoyed it. So, I don't know, is that one of those things like, the best cup of hot cocoa I've ever had is after I was out in the freezing cold building an igloo? I don't know. I don't know if it was some kind of traumatic moment for him that he's happy he lived through and now he really liked it. So, in the end, he does say that he really enjoyed the car and it was a good thing. But there's so many things in here. It doesn't have any fast charge capability, which makes it horrible for something that you need to charge midday. If you have, you commute to work, you can charge all day at work, and then you can drive a full charge after work, and then you can charge overnight for a full charge the next day. A car like this works out great. But when you need more than the range it has during a day, and you have to charge, and you don't have fast charge, you shouldn't be surprised that charging takes a while. Anyway, so it gets back to if you don't get the car you need for your usage, for the needs that you have, it's never going to be great. Right. If you need to move furniture and you get a Roadster, gas or electric, it's not going to be a good fit. So if you want a commuter car, this might be great. If you need something where you're going to do road trips, it's not. That was it. I just wanted to rant.
So can I? This hits on one of my super sore points about journalists, and it's been interesting because the last couple of years it's kind of tapered off, and I think it had to do with more net-based journalists getting involved and fewer of the traditional print media things. But I can't tell you how many articles I used to read through, and it was like, well, they flew us first class to Helsinki to spend a week with the new Ford Explorer. And honestly, the shrimp on the flight weren't very cold, and the champagne was kind of mediocre, and the hotel room overlooked a parking lot, and the massage wasn't very good. And at the bottom, it'd be like, but the new Ford Explorer is going to be the Motor Trend Car of the Year.
Meaning, please invite me back next time for the event.
Yes.
The free shit.
Right. Yeah. First world problems.
Yeah.
Journalist.
Yeah. I mean, the backpack they gave me, I don't really like the color. It's like.
It does smell of this. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I read through the thing and I just kept waiting and waiting and waiting, and finally, at the penultimate paragraph, he's like, the car's pretty cool, and I really like that EV Hub app.
But how many people actually read articles to the very end these days?
Well,
right.
Primarily because they're crap until the. I mean, just kind of it made me sad. That's all.
Yeah, so there is one thing in here I've been saying. Rental car companies need to include on the key ring the charging membership. And it should just be part of, if you're renting that car out, people are going to charge with it. They should, as a rental company, make deals with the local charge networks so that maybe they get some discounted rate or something.
Yes.
Yeah, that would
if
make.
If you're flying into a different city, they're probably not going to you're probably not going to know all the networks there. But that car is going to be local. It should absolutely have those.
Right. When I fly into Denver, and a lot of the interstates around Denver are toll roads, and as I am leaving, they offer to sell me one of those things that I can put up, to automatically pay the tolls as I drive through. It should be the exact same thing. We know you're going to be using the car. We know that you're going to need to charge it. So part of your rental per day includes all the charging that you'll need while you have it. That just makes
or
too much
here's
sense.
a list of the hotels that have free charging in the area, so you could stay at one of those
See,
places.
and yeah, really,
But
they
that
would
makes too
only,
much sense.
yeah, they would only need to figure that out and print that material once, and then include it in the car. It's not like it's going to change on a daily basis.
Right. Orlando has a service like that now, and I'm not sure if they publicize it that well or not, but they have rentals at the airport for EVs, and they're publicizing it that all the hotels in a given area provide charging for those cars.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me, but what do I know?
There's too much sense in this world.
Answer: very, very little.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I blew past the 2-minute topic, so let's go to Mark.
Topic that I had come across this week was about a solar roadway being installed near Amsterdam in the Netherlands. This solar road was put in place about 70 meters in length. It's about 14 or so panels that lowered into place with a crane because it is about 8 to 10 inches in thickness. And they were testing the theory as to how much solar energy this device could pick up by just sitting out on a roadway, in this case a bike path. And over 6 months now, it's collected around 3,000 kilowatt hours of power, which would be the equivalent or the rough equivalent of a single person household burning electricity for a full year. So kind of interesting that they have found that this was above their expectations, probably about 25-30% above what they had thought, and kind of interesting to see that just a piece of a slab laying in the middle of a bike path, even with the questionable weather of the Netherlands, was able to collect that much energy. So possible. Some other tests are going to be performed in the United States, I hear, in the upcoming year. So it'll be interesting to see if these things start to make their way around the country.
Of course, they didn't say the cost per mile to install this.
They skipped that part completely, didn't they? Yes.
Yeah.
$10 billion a mile.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, we've dumped billions of dollars into cement and asphalt roads that need to be replaced every year, or every other year, or every few years, and don't generate any electricity whatsoever.
Wasn't there some statistic I saw that every hour the sun's energy that hits the Earth could power the Earth for like a year?
For a year,
Like
yes.
if you could harness it somehow, you would need no fossil fuels, no electricity.
Yeah, exactly. And this is truly the concept of passive solar, because like Mark said, it's just sitting there, and we have bike paths and sidewalks, and they're just everywhere. They're just sitting there. Yeah, I question the whole highway thing, just simply for the weight and the use. So I'm not even going to go there. I'm just going to focus on pedestrians. But think of just sidewalks and bike paths and stuff. It's just there, and like to Russell's point, it's just asphalt doing nothing but soaking up the sun and creating urban heat islands. So let's put it to use.
Here's my question. And this
Was
is
that
something
it?
I've never heard talked about. Why don't we? Has it ever been discussed to make solar coverings for certain highways or interstates that actually go over the roads instead of part of the road? That way the road's covered from inclement weather, road lasts longer potentially, and you get all the solar.
I've only ever seen the train. Do you guys remember where the cover? Do you remember that?
Mm-mm.
We talked about that. There was a stretch.
This was a
Yeah,
while.
was it in France? I think it was. There was a big stretch of a train that was covered. And at my work, we have carports that are solar panels. So you get out of the rain, and it makes a whole lot of electricity.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many ways that we could incorporate solar into what we do that we just don't.
Mm.
Whether it's a covered roadway, covered walkway, rooftops, parking covers, I don't know. It would be an interesting idea. Yeah, and you know what? I'm not going to even belittle it by nitpicking at it because it's something we should think about.
I'm sure in practical reality it's probably a ridiculous idea, but
Yeah. I don't. It's no more ridiculous than spending billions of dollars every year re-asphalting highways.
true.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of solar on flat roofs. We have all these flat roofs on top of all of these buildings, and then to top it off, we put the air handling units on top of these flat roofs, in front, in the direct sunlight, and the way heat transfer works is you want to dissipate heat into cooler temperatures, and so here we have them on these roofs in direct sunlight where they're being heated up to 150 degrees, and guess what? Heat transfer doesn't work very well. So we should shade these things with solar panels.
With solar, yeah.
Yeah, we shade them with solar panels so you get better heat transfer, so they operate more efficiently, they don't use as much electricity, and then the solar panels are generating electricity that even further offset the fact that you're saving electricity. I mean, it just makes too much sense. That's why it'll never work.
Exactly.
I bet in the next 10 years we see a lot more uses with solar panels, just because the costs coming down.
And I
think people will start to get more inventive.
Some big box places, like there's a lot of IKEA stores around the country that their whole roof is solar.
Yep.
And,
Yeah.
Walmart
as well. Yep.
So,
And then as we get cheaper batteries, then we can start storing that energy and using it exactly when we need it instead of just when it happens to be generated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or for emergencies. Tony.
Well, yeah. So our 2-minute topics have become 5.
Good luck with this one.
So I'm just gonna briefly touch on this little blurb that has no real impact on the world or any of us. That Exxon apparently did studies in the 1970s and discovered that burning their product is driving global warming. Now, they knew about this 40 years ago, and then they started funding all of these campaigns to downplay or even argue the research that they had paid for. So a lot of people are attributing this to the tobacco companies who had real hard science indicating that their product killed people, and then did all of this did all of this behind the scenes effort in order to squash all of that and make their product seem like the next best thing to sliced bread and Betty White. But the difference here is that Exxon actually can't be accused of withholding the data because they literally published the data in 1977 saying that their product was driving global warming and that it was directly from burning fossil fuels that was heating the atmosphere, and and it was only going to get worse, and they pretty much nailed it. According to their research, where we are right now, they knew exactly what was coming. They published it. It's just that they published it so obscurely that only recently are people finding this information and now trying to go after Exxon and saying you knew about this, but you did all of this, and I don't know where this is going to go, how it's going to end. I'm sure that Exxon is going to get a slap on the wrist and $50 billion of tax subsidies, and then everybody will just get on with their lives.
I've seen a couple adjacent news stories where people are actually picketing Exxon stations with placards about this. So
Yeah, with the hashtag ExxonNew.
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, a gas station here and there is one thing, but really honestly, they need to be hit pretty hard, and it needs to happen at headquarters.
But as you said, they've got themselves out of it by saying they already did publish it, just that nobody took any notice of it.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
It's like the double reverse thing, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, before I start crying, let's talk about something else.
This got depressing quick.
Yeah, Cooper, that's you.
All right, you're on.
Hi.
Hi, Danny.
Welcome back.
So, in case you forgot, I run a little site called PriusChat.com. And this past week I got to drive the all-new Prius in sunny California, which was actually the same temperature as it was in my house in Charlotte, so not a big vacation for me. Except I did get to see the ocean.
Danny, if I can interject, real quick question. How many of us did you invite along?
So I invited, let me count. None of you, actually. I invited.
I just thought maybe you had my address wrong.
I was not given an and one invitation, unfortunately. So I apologize. But no, so I got to actually the 2016 Prius and the RAV4 hybrid were both at the event. I kind of skipped out of my RAV4 hybrid group after about an hour and a half in the RAV4 and jumped into the Prius group, so I had an extra half a day with that. But I was, it's kind of like the long and short of it is that when I first saw the 2016 Prius, I thought it was going to be like an adequate substitution for the third gen Prius, a car that has really cemented the Prius as the green car, the hybrid halo car, and it's Toyota's most important vehicle. I did not expect it to be like, Danny, you're going to want to buy this car over the plug-in Prius that you have. I was expecting it to, enjoy the new styling, but that was about it. Toyota's been touting the performance, suspension changes that they've made to the car, and this was kind of the stuff that I was most worried about. Like, they were not going to live up to this, and they were going to fall flat on their face, have a lot of problems with journalists and whatnot when it came to this, because if there's one thing that journalists are out looking for, it's for the Prius to kind of fall on its face.
I thought it was cold shrimp.
There's that too. They are looking for cool and good.
Yeah, how was the
massages.
shrimp on the first class flight out there?
Unfortunately, I was a coach, so I don't know.
Did you see?
You'd probably have to ask the folks from like Autoblog Green or something about that. So we get in the Prius. They do their technical presentation, which I've got up on YouTube on the Prius Chat channel. You can watch the full technical presentation. They put us in the cars and they say, okay, take these cars to El Toro, the old Marine base, El Toro. We've got some driving demos set up there. So you take the Prius up to El Toro, pull up to El Toro, and they have something I never would have imagined that I would see at a Prius event, which was like an autocross course set up for the Prius. And they've also got demos of some of their new safety stuff, which was also really awesome, and we also have demo videos of that up on YouTube. But they set up a autocross course to show off the new driving dynamics in the Toyota Prius, and I tell you what, it totally was worth it. They did not fall on their face. They have achieved everything I think that they hope to achieve from a performance driving dynamic perspective with this car. So they had the 4th gen Prius that we drove out there. I actually drove the Eco model out to El Toro, and then they also had a 3rd gen Prius available on site as well. Now I wish that they had a 2nd gen Prius just so I could really tell the big difference between those cars. But so you could take the fourth gen Prius through the course, fourth gen Prius through the course, and then you could get in the third gen Prius and do the same course in the third gen and feel the difference. And going through the first time driving a third gen Prius on a daily basis, I kind of knew what I normally feel in my Prius when I go through certain curves. And so I knew going through in the fourth gen Prius that this thing is a whole lot better than what I've been driving lately. And then I got in the third gen Prius and went through it, and boy, the differences were just astronomical. The Prius has kind of been known for having a tail end that just kind of flops out of control, without any hesitation. But the new Prius, built on the TNGA platform, they were able to put a double wishbone independent suspension on it, and the differences, it's amazing. It really is. They lived up to the Paul, I guess it's you that's having the sound problems. They're really living up to the expectations that they set forward. And then there's the MPG number. So now the Prius isn't just about the MPG number, and so that kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. They didn't exactly reach their 55 number that they've been touting. We all kind of thought that they would go for 55 and then 60 with this Eco model, and they didn't quite reach that. So we've got 54 on the standard model, which is no slouch, and 58 in the Eco, which is also no slouch at all. They didn't reach the 55 and 60 numbers, but a lot of that is probably attributed to a new EPA test that, I don't want to say it dings the hybrids, but it brings them more in line with the EPA test. They're kind of dumbing it down so that any user can achieve those numbers without a lot of difficulty. So, side story, there's a group of Prius experts that I'm a part of, and Russell's part of that, Tony's part of it, Evan Fusco, who's also on the show every once in a while, is part of it. And after I drove the Prius Eco out to El Toro, I took a picture of my MPG because I was like, whoa, I got 58.8, I think it was.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, on like a 20-mile trip out to El Toro. I was like, wow, I took a picture, I sent it, or I took a picture and I saved it, and later on in the day I sent it to them, and I included with the photo, I said, I was so jazzed about my 58 MPG, and then I realized that's the EPA number. So that was kind of like, well.
But still, 58. And what kind of driving? 20 miles of hills, highway, street?
Yeah, it was mostly like hilly type stuff. Yeah, it was not like your flat city kind of typical driving. Mm-hmm. And so that was actually kind of a really neat part. Plus, it was my first time in the car, so getting a feel for the throttle controls and all that kind of stuff was all new.
So can we compare that to a car you're familiar with? That is to say, yours.
Well, see, it's hard to compare with my plug-in because, like, right now I'm at 110 miles to the gallon because of the plug-in aspect of it. Right. With my Prius, when I'm driving on the interstate, I'll normally do right around the 50 mark. So I usually, but I'm driving, on the interstate I'm going 75 miles an hour, 5 miles over the speed limit. So I'm not a hyper miler, and I think Tony, you said something online that what was your line again?
I said I've ridden with Danny. He puts the hyper in driving, but not hyper miling. Yes.
Yeah. So I like to think that the way I drive is pretty real world when it comes to how the Priuses can actually react. And so from an MPG perspective, I think Toyota's totally nailed it. They really dialed it in. HSD component wise, they're continuing to kind of make everything smaller, more efficient. They're up to 40% thermal efficiency, which is pretty amazing. They've shifted things around as far as where MG1 and MG2 sit in the engine bay. Made it, like I said, everything kind of a little bit smaller. They made room to put the 12-volt battery in the front end of the car, and they've made that beefier. So I think that that's going to add to longevity for that battery, which is a problem that Prius owners have had for, at least in the third generation, it's been a really big problem. I don't know if it was as big of a problem in the second gen, Tony.
Yes, it was.
Okay. So,
especially if you had the smart key, and if you parked in an airport, for example, for 2 weeks and you forgot to turn off the smart key, the car pings for the key for 2 weeks and drains the battery.
Wait, how does having the battery up front change that?
Well, they were able to put a more like automotive grade battery in it, basically.
Bigger battery.
Yeah, the Prius, at least the Gen 2, has some people have just compared it to a motorcycle battery. It's just a tiny little thing. Yeah, it's a tiny little thing, and really all it's designed to do is open up the circuits so that the hybrid battery can take over, which is great for driving every day. But if the car is sitting for 2 to 3 weeks, it'll just trickle out.
Yeah, and they've also had just in general longevity issues with them. Like people seem to be replacing them once after 3 years, and then after that they seem to be replacing them once a year after that. So anyway, they made some changes to the HSD system, and what was now that I've driven 3 generations of Prius, second, third, and fourth gen, I skipped the first and pretend it didn't exist. Toyota has really kind of just made the hybrid system silky smooth. In the second gen Prius, I could feel the difference between when the engine turned on, engine turned off. You could kind of get a really good feel for when you were pulsing and gliding, right, Tony?
Oh yeah.
Third gen, it was a little bit more difficult to tell, and so pulsing gliding actually became more difficult. This one, I can't wait for you to drive, Tony, because I think it's going to be really hard for you to pulse and glide, because unless you're looking at the screen to see the little EV light up, you can't feel that switch over between gas and electric, which is a testament to Toyota. You know, it sucks for like us enthusiasts who love that feeling so that we know where we are in the car. Mm-hmm. But from a broad buyer base, it's fantastic, and it's amazing that Toyota's been able to do it. And it's the same thing with the regenerative braking. You can't feel when regenerative brakes turn into friction brakes anymore. You used to kind of feel this little shudder between when the regen brakes would turn into friction, and you'd be like, oh, there goes the friction brake. Right. You can't feel it anymore. So it's little things like that Toyota's refined significantly.
And it's funny that you refer to the enthusiasts, because you have BMW drivers and the sports car drivers who, you know, they're all about the road feel. And I remember we talked about it on a previous episode about all the fly-by-wire and taking a lot of the mechanics out. And people were complaining that they couldn't feel the road as much as they wanted to. And on a truly nerdy aspect, it's the exact same thing. We are, at least I am in my Gen 2, I can feel every little thing the car is doing. And I've just, you know, like Danny said, I can tell exactly when I'm running on battery, exactly when the engine is running. I know exactly when I'm regenerative braking, just from the feel that I get from the car. And it's going to be interesting if you take that away. It's just going to feel like a regular car, which, like you said, is going to appeal to the masses. I just kind of wonder what it's going to feel like. I think for me, who's, you know, for 11 years, I've become so accustomed to just constantly knowing what the car's doing.
And I'm interested to find out when you drive it to see if there are, and you may or may not be planning on buying one, right? You're still thinking about that?
Well, I probably would be able to tell you if I'd have gone with you, but
if you could drive the damn thing.
Yeah. It's probably, you know, now that they're forecasting snow this weekend here in Chicagoland, and, you know, driving something around in the winter is not always the best time to judge it. So, you know, now it's hibernation time. It's going to be May before I get a real opportunity to actually drive the car.
Or we just need to really butter Toyota up to get you out to California, I guess.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to finding out like how you, if you do drive the car long term, kind of finding out if you do find, just different sweet spots in the system.
Is it true that Prius Chat is considering flying all of us panelists to California for a week?
I've seen a rumor about that.
Yeah.
But there will be no official
First
Prius
class.
Chat comment tonight.
Yes.
The shrimp will be room
chilled.
temperature, unfortunately. Back to the driving, experience. The other thing that I really noticed was because they're on this new platform, TNGA, they were able to do a whole lot more with soundproofing, and so the floor has a lot more soundproofing to it. The front, kind of cockpit area between the engine and the driver and the passenger area has also been, much more sound deadening, and that was really apparent as well. There's a big difference driving that thing. It was, the noise in it is similar to the noise, probably less so, than when I'm driving my plug-in Prius and don't have the engine running.
Now, I did see in the video that you compared it actually to the RAV4 EV.
No, that was the Highlander.
That's what I said.
Yeah, and the only reason I knew I was able to test the Highlander is because that's what they picked me up from the airport in. And so I was in a Highlander hybrid, and I figured I'd use that as a baseline because I noticed how quiet the Highlander hybrid was. So I had my sound meter on my phone and compared between that and the Prius, and they were both at, I think, 77 decibels. And obviously that would, your phone's probably going to read 77 decibels different than my phone would, but at any rate, it kind of gave me a little bit of something to compare to. But that was impressive. And just driving in general, it's a much better experience. It's actually like fun to drive because when you're taking a curve, you don't feel the back end come out, you don't feel the car kind of twist. That body rigidity that they increased has made a huge difference.
Well, and the previous generations were all straight axle rear end, which is pretty low tech.
Yeah, and they really focused on making this car more fun to drive because I think Toyota sees, not the writing on the wall, but they've seen how the Prius market reacts to gas prices, and the Prius market goes up and down as gas prices go up and down. And so I think they're looking for a way to kind of stabilize those sales. And I guess one way that they figured was, let's make it a more fun car to drive. Let's just not make it an appliance that rides down the road. Let's make it a fun car to drive. And it actually was. And, I totally forgot to try out power mode. but I did, I used standard mode and eco mode, and, both of them still were plenty fine. They've increased the torque, the low-end torque. So 0 to 30 is much improved. 0 to 60 is about the same as the current Prius, 9.7 seconds. They haven't quoted an official number on the 4th Gen Prius, but Dave Lee from Toyota told me that it's going to be about the same as the 3rd Gen Prius. But that low-end torque is what really matters, and it makes a huge difference. It's somewhat similar to like what EV buyers feel when they drive.
Yeah, agreed. It having that low end torque, it makes it peppy off the line, and 0 to 30 is what really you're going through it all the time. I mean, that's what you're using in normal traffic. So having it there makes a big difference. Even if it doesn't improve your 0 to 60, it makes it a lot more fun to drive.
Exactly, and it's nice to see that Toyota focused on those things to fix with the 4th Gen Prius. The driving dynamics, the fun to drive quality, and the interior, as far as sound deadening and the materials that they use in the design, just blows the 3rd generation Prius away. And I haven't ridden or I haven't completed my written review. I've got a video review up on Prius Chat, but I currently am leasing my plug-in Prius, and I have it leased. I just got an extension through March. My plan was to buy that plug-in Prius. I am now having to reassess that decision.
Are they going to have a plug-in version of the Gen 4?
They will. It will be delayed a year, so I think it's going to come out as a 17 model.
And what about all-wheel drive Gen 4?
So the all-wheel drive is going to Japan market only, I think. I don't even think the UK or anybody got it. And actually, I think the UK only is getting nickel batteries. The Prius in the US is getting, there's nickel in the base Prius 2 model, and then Prius 2 Eco and up are all getting the lithium battery. So that saves some weight, which basically they're using the weight savings to throw on some extra goodies, I guess is the best way to put it. And
So
also
same capacity then, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Both batteries, same capacity, same power outputs. The nickel metal hydride battery has been reduced in size. Dave hasn't seen all the technical documentation yet to be able to tell me if it was just a change in the way they packaged it, or if it's a change in the way that they, the density of the cells or whatnot. They did move all the battery packs under the floor or under the back seat. Yeah, that also helped a lot with driving dynamics as well. So you don't have that 100 pounds extra sitting in the trunk, kind of waving you back and forth. One of the big problems that we always had with the second gen and third gen, not as much, but it was still there, which was crosswinds coming across the second gen Prius, Tony.
Oh my gosh.
Winds come across the second gen Prius and just you could get blown off the road, it feels like. Third gen Prius was a little bit better. The fourth gen Prius, I didn't feel any of that. And I distinctly remember when I was driving through some canyon areas, a wind gusting through because I saw like the dirt and crap flying off the road. And I didn't feel a thing.
Yeah.
So that was very nice.
How about the rear visibility? Did they improve that a bunch?
So what they did was, I wouldn't say that it's been improved a bunch. What they did is they made the upper hatch area, what they call the greenhouse area, a little bit larger. And I don't know if they lowered that kind of bar that goes across the center. To be honest with you, Paul, it's one of those things that has never really bothered me as a Prius driver, so I don't pay too much attention to it. A lot of people get really bent out of shape about that. But it's just been something I've never really paid too much attention to. But they did specifically say that they made that greenhouse area on the top larger to give more viewing. The front at the A-pillar is where there's really been some significant sightline changes. I don't really remember from driving the second gen, but I know in my third gen, at the A-pillar, where the A-pillar comes down and it kind of makes that Y, and you got the triangle window.
Triangle.
And you've got those thick kind of beams, pillars, I guess. So what they've done is between you've got your driver window here and your little triangle window here, instead of that big beam being in the middle of them, they've basically put those two pieces right up against each other. So instead of looking out the side of your car and seeing your driver window and a big pillar and then a triangle and then another big pillar, you now have all glass until you get to the A pillar that runs in the corner of the car. And so it's really increased visibility up front.
Yeah, I can tell you one thing that I didn't even realize I was doing this, but when I'm coming to certain intersections at my commute, in order to look to my left, I didn't realize that I actually did a head bob to be able to see. I'd look through the windshield and I would look through the window because that A-pillar is just so thick. It'll block out maybe 10% of your visibility, and that's enough to block out a car if it's coming from the right angle.
Well, what's crazy is it's not just a visibility thing. It's also like kind of a feel thing. Now it feels so much more open in the front of the car. It's a much better feeling than third gen. It's hard to explain what that but it's like a psychological thing, I guess.
Yeah.
How did it feel with the height of the car getting into it? I understand it's a little bit lower than the previous generations.
Yeah, it's a little bit lower. I didn't notice anything as far as getting in and out. You know, it's funny that you should mention that, Mark. In Vegas, when I got in and out of the cars that they had set up there, I remember my knees brushing against the steering wheel every time I got in and out of the car. And I'm not a very tall guy. I mean, kind of like I'm a husky boy, but I'm not a tall guy. And I remember my legs would always rub against the steering wheel and actually like turn the steering wheel when I got in the car. And I hate that. I like my steering wheel to be kind of higher. And I adjusted the steering wheel all the way up, and still no change. That car must have had some seat adjustment on it that I didn't check, because I didn't have that problem at all this past week in the car, which made me very happy, because that was like going to be. I mean, it sounds silly, but that was going to be like a major issue for me if my legs are rubbing against my steering wheel every time I get in and out of the car, and I'm 5'10". That's kind of ridiculous.
It's better than your belly rubbing against the steering wheel.
Well, that's another issue. Mark, one of the guy I rode with on the first day was Jeff Cobb from hybridcars.com, and he was telling me about I guess on the way up to El Toro, he was telling me about the new Volt and how well it drives and everything, and the driving dynamics of it. And we did the course and everything. We're driving back to the hotel, and so I kind of asked him what he thought, and he said, "You know what? I think that's the best driving car I've driven in a long time." So he says it's kind of just above the Volt as far as driving dynamics go. And to be honest with you, I never thought that the Prius was going to be something that someone compared to the Volt, because the Volt has always been more fun to drive.
I enjoyed the hell out of the Volt when I was driving it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's peppy. It's fun.
So I thought that was a good compliment for the Prius, and
Absolutely.
The driving dynamics of the Prius are not something that's been complimented much over the years. That's for sure.
So let me try to take this another step and try to pose the question: what part of the driving dynamics do you think is Prius, and what part is TNGA that we can expect across the entire Toyota line now that they're using the same base?
I think most of it is probably TNGA, and I saw today that they announced the CHR. It's going to be a Scion product. It was initially announced as a hybrid. They didn't say anything in the press release today about it being a hybrid, but the CHR, I don't know if you guys remember that. It's that kind of high-riding compact SUV looking thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's being built on TNGA as well. I think most of it's probably architecture. I bet moving the battery to underneath the seat helped a significant amount. I think that's probably where a lot of the Volt's driving capabilities come from, is that kind of center of gravity of weight.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's probably mostly architecture.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about the stiffness of the chassis and the new welding technique that they're using.
These laser welds that they're doing.
Yeah, laser welds, and so it's almost exciting to think that the first car built on the TNGA platform is the Prius, and it's actually fun to drive. So it's like, well, then the new Camry that comes out on the TNGA platform, and the Corolla that comes out on the TNGA platform. What are those going to be like?
The Prius V actually is what I'm interested in.
Yeah, that too. I mean, yeah, I think it's going to create new dynamics to the entire Toyota line.
Yeah, and like I said, they could, platform's one thing, and I think choice of suspension is probably another. And so the fact that they wanted to focus on driving dynamics for this car meant that they put a better suspension than they have in the past. And so I don't know if the suspension and the architecture go hand in hand,
Well, yeah, maybe to improve the Corolla And it's not a hybrid. That they'll just take a 600-pound block of lead and just put it under the passenger seat.
There we go. There we go. I like that idea.
Right.
I will say the way Toyota's packaging this car, as far as like the models and options, it's still confusing as hell. They can't come up with a simplified way to do this. And I think it mostly stems from the fact that they are so limited by weight on what they can offer on different models to kind of, I don't think that they would legally have to, but I think they would kind of feel obligated to reclassify the EPA MPG numbers if they, exceeded a certain weight enough to where it would affect the mileage. So, for example, like the 4 Touring is the top end model, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not quite top end because you can't get the all of the advanced tech features on it. You can't get the HUD, the heads-up display, and you can't get the sunroof.
And there's some of the even some of the safety features I think are in the PCP package, the performance something package that's not available on the Touring.
Yeah. You put together a great table, by the way, up on Prius Chat that kind of helps define the packages, and I think that's going to become one of the highest read threads on Prius Chat over the next 6 to 8 months while people are figuring out what to get on their car. So it becomes it just becomes so confusing. The intelligent, like which one can you get with intelligent park assist? Which one comes with Toyota Safety Sense? Which, if I can talk for a second about this Toyota Safety Sense, that's some pretty impressive safety stuff that they put on it. We didn't get to do something quite to the level of that Hyundai commercial, the Genesis commercial that we showed on the show a few years ago. Where all the cars are kind of following in line and they all stop at the same time. But they did have 2 demos set up. One had you drive. They had us go to like 15 miles an hour and then slow down at a certain, or let off the accelerator at a certain point. And the system took you all the way down to a 0 stop brake. That was for vehicles. And then they also have a pedestrian system. And the Prius is the only Toyota that has the pedestrian pre-collision system. So it can
detect. He said it. Like safety sense is such a better term.
Pre-collision.
Yeah.
Pre-collision.
So
that was pretty amazing. And then they have dynamic range cruise control, which has always been one of Russell and I's favorite features on the Priuses. And now it's a full range system. So that means that if you are in like the city and you're going to go, let's say 35 miles an hour, you can set your cruise at 35 miles an hour and be following behind traffic, and the system will stop and go for you. And we lost Tony.
Even during like rush hour, creepy crawly type driving, will it do that, or do you have to?
So it'll bring you all the way down to a stop, but you do have to re-engage the system to restart. So you can either hit the resume on the stalk, or you can tap the accelerator. And the natural inclination is to tap the accelerator to get going anyway. It'll re-engage as long as you have a target in front of you to kind of lock onto.
That's pretty cool. They do need something. They can't just have it stop and then somebody gets out of their car and then it just starts going again.
Right, yeah.
Some little input would be good here.
And I don't know if anybody else here has any real experience with the hill, what do they call it, hill assist?
Hill holder.
Hill start assist. Yeah, hill start assist. In the past, you had to hold your brake pedal down for like 2 seconds, and you'll hear a beep, and then it'll hold the brakes in place until you start using the accelerator. Now it uses, I guess, gyroscopes in the car to tell when you're on a hill, and it automatically engages the hill assist.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so that was some impressive stuff. Russell, you've been very quiet, my friend.
I am taking it all in. I am taking it all in, and I want to give everybody else a chance to talk.
I'll do my typical rant. So they went from 50 to 58. That's good. How many engineering hours of cumulative time did that take? It's going to be on the order of years, and yet you're already getting, what you said, 110 in your plug-in Prius. So it seems like instead of spending all the time and effort that they needed to just eke a few more MPG out, just make a plug-in that's the car you're selling as your primary car.
Patrick, I don't 100% disagree with that. And if they come out with a plug-in that is a 30-mile range plug-in next year, I will be the first one saying that they should dump the regular Prius. They should only sell the plug-in. I was talking to engineers, and he said that he's spent the last 5 years of his life on this car. And so, you know, exactly what you're saying. I hope that somebody else is spending 5 years of their life on the plug-in.
Right. Hold your breath.
Yeah,
It's
I don't
Toyota.
know.
They've got the Mirai. They don't need to worry about plug-ins.
So, Danny, do you know if these were you driving prototypes?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you know, they're
Pre-production.
They don't trust him with the real car. I mean, come on.
No, I mean, but it just sometimes they have production vehicles, sometimes they're production prototypes, sometimes they're prototypes. I'm just wondering what the
Did they
difference would
say
be.
when they actually go on sale?
These are pre-production prototypes. They go on. It'll be on lots in January, which I think means it'll probably start production next month. So I mean, it was final.
Yeah, those would have to be really close. It's
Yeah.
just not on the final production line. Is probably the only real difference.
You know, and one other thing I wanted to talk about is a lot of people, including myself, were kind of hating on that white dash and the white, I don't know, console area down below.
It's bone china.
Bone china.
That's what they call it. Yeah, they call it bone china.
I thought you made that up.
No. It's that's actually in the.
Please tell me you're making that up. Please.
Is that a
tell me.
color or a political statement?
Yeah.
Hold on. You know what?
Word noun or adjective?
It's made out of elephant tusks.
Oh yeah, here we go.
I did notice it was quite durable.
Yes, that it is. It is made of tusks. Yeah.
It's made out of white.
You heard it here first, folks.
Anyway, there was a lot of discussion about how much people kind of hated that look. And I think a lot of it came up out of the fact that a lot of people didn't like it in the first gen Volt, and they were worried that it would kind of look the same. And I am actually happy to report that I ended up liking the white quite a bit. Like for the first time.
Oh,
I know, right?
you!
Mr. White iPhone over here. That's a joke that goes back years with Russell and I.
Yes. You've harassed him a
All
lot.
girls
I
have
have.
white iPhones. And
Exactly, and now real men will have Priuses with white trays. I tell you, the biggest thing that sold me on it was the fact that you can look down and actually find what you're looking for. You know, when you have a black phone against a black tray, it's not always the easiest thing to find, right? Or you pull out everything that's in your pocket. 90% of it is black. And those are the items that are going to end up in that tray at some point. And so when it's against a white background, it's a whole lot easier to find. But I will say this, there is a saving grace, and the Prius Chat Shop is going to help you out. Because Toyota is actually going to come out with an official drop-in liner that's got adhesive that will drop in and cover all the bone white china
I'm looking.
console. I really thought.
And what did you think about the graphics that were displayed on the screens? What was its change? What was your impression?
So the third gen Prius was, how do I put this nicely?
Crappy.
Was barely. It was out of date by the time it hit the dealers. Let's just put it that way from a screen perspective. The 4th Gen Prius has two 4.2 inch, I think they're both 4.2 inch, TFT LCD displays, which are like generations ahead of what Toyota's had in there before. And the processor that they have driving those displays is so much better. So much better. You press a button, and it actually does something when you press it. There's no more delay.
Something.
Like they have a very nice four dial or 4-button navigation pad on the steering wheel, and you press it and it actually changes screens. You know, there's no like delay. Like, did I press it? I think I pressed it. I don't know. There's no more wondering like that. And there's also an amazing amount of customization that you can do now. You can't. It's not just customizing. Like 3rd Gen Prius, you've got your speedometer on the left, and you've got your hybrid synergy indicator on your right, and that's pretty much what you have. In the 4th Gen Prius, you can customize the speedometer screen. You can add instant MPG meters. You can add your it's basically a hybrid synergy indicator. It shows if you're in charge or in power and all that
Energy
jazz.
monitoring screen.
Energy monitor screen, yes, thank you. Very similar to that. And then on the right, you can also customize that in so many different ways, and it will now show audio. It will show climate control, and it will just do like a pop-up. So like when you change a song, it'll pop up and show you the song that you're changing, so you don't have to move your eye down to the radio every time you do something.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of nice changes that Toyota actually put some thought into for once in their lives. How can we make this better? And they actually did make it better.
So many times. How many times have I said that I was totally jealous of my wife's 2010 Ford Fusion Hybrid because of that dash, and it was just so customizable, and you could go advanced and you could geek out with all the different widgets, or you could just go simple. And I'm so happy to hear that that's coming to the Prius.
Yeah, I haven't been in the new Volt yet to know. I'm actually probably going to be in one early next week. But I haven't been in the new Volt yet to kind of be able to tell you the differences between them, Mark. But I do look forward to kind of comparing them. And I hope that Toyota's not just coming out with the tail end of the current generation of this technology. I hope that they're kind of on the forefront of it. And I think that they're kind of on the forefront of it because just from the way things were reacting when I was using them told me that they're not where they were with the 3rd Gen. The 3rd Gen, from the first day, pressing the button, you kind of had to be like, I think I pressed it. And then you wait a second and it actually does something.
Okay, I want to touch on this real quick. I have the Toyota official press release, as you can see here, after the Las Vegas world premiere. And if you scroll down, it says, available premium light ornamentation in the lower section of the cabin is reminiscent of fine bone china.
I'm gonna mute Tony in a second.
But who boned the China?
Yeah.
The china, exactly.
I do have one question for you, Cooper.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot on the show about the 3rd Gen and our concerns for the 4th Gen when none of us knew anything about what 4th Gen was going to be. And I remember the word that we used a lot, which is that the Prius had been leapfrogged by other companies. So I'm curious, and I think you were part of that group.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious now, after having driven this 4th Gen Prius, do you feel like what you know right now, is this a legit contender for current vehicles? New generation Leaf, new generation Volt. You got to look at, it'll get a mid-cycle refresh, but 2017 Tesla Model 3, those are the cars that, do you feel like this is a competitor, or is Toyota still kind of chasing their tail?
Okay, 2 parts. I don't think they're a competitor. but I also think that they've pivoted instead of trying to keep up with those cars. What I think will be interesting is next year when we find out about the plug-in Prius, or whatever they're going to end up calling it, to find out whether that's going to be their competitor for Volt, Model 3, Bolt, all that, that part of the segment. I think Toyota, the Prius is kind of, like I said, they've kind of pivoted the Prius into, instead of trying to chase the alt fuel scene, which is more plug-in based than anything else right now, they have kind of pivoted the Prius to be more of a let's shoot this thing into the mainstream by improving the things that people have always dogged the Prius about. And if they come out with a plug-in that is, I have an 11-mile, let's say that they increase it by 50%, and that's 16 miles, 16 and a half miles to be generous. Mm-hmm. That will be a failure in my mind. They will not be competitive. So I think it's kind of it's almost unfair to think of the Prius as a competitor to those cars. I think it's going to continue to lead the sales when it comes to that market of vehicle. And I think that pivoting the way that they have into the kind of a performance and focusing on driving dynamics, it's going to help them kind of transition into more mass market, because Toyota sales have Prius sales have just plummeted as gas prices have plummeted, as with most of the alt fuel cars. But Toyota is trying to find a way to mitigate those external factors, I guess is the best way to put it.
I get that, and I think you're right about the plug-in being important. And you said this is sort of a new direction for them, or this is sort of a pivot. I almost have to disagree with you, and I haven't driven the car. Obviously, I haven't been over all the specs. I've watched most of your videos, and I've kind of read through some of the stuff, so I've got a little bit of an idea. But I guess this seems to me like a very, very natural part of the evolution that Toyota has consciously made with this vehicle, which is making it a hybrid halo car back in the day to now making it a fuel-efficient mainstream vehicle. Mm-hmm. In fact, let me reverse that. Fuel-efficient being the second most important thing of the car. It's a sedan. And hey, it's really efficient.
It's funny you say that. When I was editing my video very late last night, and I was finalizing the editing of it, I realized that nowhere in the video do I talk about the EPA MPG numbers. And so I actually had to go through and put like a screen overlay when I had like a natural pause. I had to put the MPG numbers because at no point did I even talk about them. And I don't know, is that reflective of how Toyota's focused this car? Is that reflective of just my personal focus on it? Because we all know that the Prius is going to be a great MPG car. Does it really matter if it gets 50 or if it gets 54 when you're comparing it to a 35 miles per gallon car?
Not really. That's why I think a lot of this chatter about the MPG and a lot of the bravado that I've seen from some folks, dare I say, maybe folks that aren't really thinking that well. If it gets less than 65, I'm not gonna, whatever. That's just
people upset about them not hitting the 60 number seems kind of ridiculous to me.
It's silly.
It's not good enough for you. I mean, really?
Well, and the thing is, anybody who's really that MPG conscious can pull better numbers.
I can pull better numbers with Patrick's Leaf. I mean, if it's that big of a deal for you, then buy a different car. Buy
get a Gen 1 Insight.
Yeah.
I mean, now it will be interesting to see what Hyundai ends up coming out. They're talking about this Hyundai Ioniq that they're coming out with. They've always said that it will match Toyota's 55 number. 55 is the number that Toyota originally said, because that's what their internal testing was showing them before the EPA testing switched up. And so
Were
actually
they using Volkswagen software?
They were, yes.
Well, that was. Yeah,
they did tell me to get a feel for the actual increase of MPG, like from a percentage standpoint. If you look at the Japanese tests or the European tests, those tests have not changed between 3rd gen and 4th gen. So you can get like a true baseline to see the percentage increase between the two generations. I haven't done it yet because I'm lazy, but anyway, somebody can do it.
Does Toyota have a name for like fun to drive, like Farfanugan? Is there a Toyota version of that?
No, they have nothing.
There should be.
They're too conservative for something like that.
Yeah.
Which is why they don't get in trouble for emissions problems.
Yeah.
Prius, Newfin, I don't know.
One other thing I did want to say, and this is mostly because I have personally ragged on Toyota hard about this, and we have on the show quite a bit, is this car lacks Android Auto. It lacks Apple CarPlay. I thought going in, I thought that was going to be a huge consideration for me as to whether I was going to end up liking the car in general or not. It ended up not being, and I'm almost disappointed in myself that it's not.
how could that? What has changed?
Well,
did they improve Entune or something?
Yeah.
They didn't improve Intune per se. I mean, Intune is better, yes.
No,
Okay.
wait. Where's Danny? Bring back Danny. I want Danny back.
Too many free shrimp on the plane.
Yeah, I think so. Intune is now a
Did you
16-bit
just say
processor.
Intune is better? Okay, I'm sorry.
Here's what I'll say. I
All
didn't play around with the Intune apps too much. They've added a couple new things. Still not crap that I care about too much. And they need to add more audio apps, I think, to the system.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they need to be on par with what Apple CarPlay and Android Auto offer from an audio perspective, audio apps. So that means like Spotify, in addition to what they have with Pandora and iHeartRadio. But one of my biggest problems with Toyota head units has been just general usability. It's just exactly what I was saying with using the screens on the upper IP. You press a button and you wait for it to do something, and then you press another button and you wait for it to do something, and you touch a squishy, crappy LCD screen, and you can like almost feel your finger about to go through the plastic screen. That's very different now, thankfully. They've got a dual processor system that drives the head units, and the difference is astounding. The resolution is so much better. But just from usability, you touch something and it actually responds to your touch. You can move around so quickly in it that it made me forget my need for anything else. So
Is
from
there
that perspective,
physical knobs for volume and channel changing?
yes, they did not go the full RAV4 EV method of how do I turn the volume up and down. There's still knobs for volume and for tuning. Everything else is kind of capacitive touch type stuff. But it's so much better. Hi, Kimberly.
Oh.
Oh, she can't hear me
There
because
you
he's got
are.
his headphones on.
She can't hear because I have headphones on.
Right.
Well, anyway, so yeah, I mean, I hate to be that guy, but it's like in my usage, and the lack of Android Auto and Apple CarPlay didn't end up affecting my impression of it, to be honest. And I think that kind of is reflective of the general buying population.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. Is it how many? Well, I mean, I don't think anyone can really answer this question, but how much of the average car buyer is aware of Android, Apple CarPlay and whatever Android has. You know, it's like I bought a car. It has a head unit infotainment system. Okay.
It might be
How
becoming
many
a
people
bigger
have
part though
smartphones?
over time.
What's that, Mark?
It might be becoming a bigger part over time with people with their relationships with their phones. You know, it's not big for us, but the younger generation thinking it might be a selling feature.
Yeah, and we know it's big for you, Russell. We know.
He's a tween in this category.
I mean, for me, connectivity is huge, and the difference between my 2012 Prius and the 2015 Corolla is significant. But that infotainment system still has those weird Toyota bugs, and then.
Well, and I didn't live with it long enough to get into that level of stuff. I put a USB drive in. I navigated around folders and stuff like that, and just the speed with which that stuff happens is so much better than my 2013.
Yeah. Oh,
and,
dude, it's huge.
Obviously better than my 2010.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what will be interesting is if Toyota. 2 years is a big time lapse when it comes to phones and stuff, and so in 2 years, when we're up for a mid-cycle refresh on the Prius, has Toyota quote unquote pulled their hat out of their ass when it comes to Android Auto and Apple CarPlay and followed 90% of the rest of the industry in adding it, or will they continue on with going Intune only? I don't really see the benefit in going Intune only unless it's a contract thing.
They own it. What contract could it be?
Well, there's got to be some sort of software vendor, right?
The only thing I could question,
I thought they were developing it in-house.
I think this came up before, but do manufacturers implement Apple and Android at the same time, or
yes.
Okay, so they would do both, so that you have one
so like
or the other.
The new Volt, for example, has both.
Yeah.
But it's only on the highest end model. It's not like a standard integration that's available, at least in the U.S. I'm not sure what it is in Canada, Mark.
The models we got had them, and they were LTZs, so I'm not sure about the lower end models or not, but I thought, I could be wrong, I thought they did come in with the lower models as well, but I have not seen one in real life yet.
Okay, I only know because, and this is why I might be in one next week, because a buddy of mine's going to buy one. He's looking to get a 16 for some reason.
Well, we should probably wrap this show up.
We've put together a lot of video content so far. So if you check out the Prius Chat YouTube page, you'll see you'll have all kinds of questions answered. Go into the 2016 Prius forum. We've got all the product stuff listed out. Tony's done a great job putting together matrices showing which models come with which product, which features, what's standard, what's optional, what's part of a package, etc., etc. We did I'm very proud of a 3-part video that we put together with Dave Lee, who's kind of the head Prius product educator at Toyota. I actually saw him I was in the first wave for the Prius press event. It was actually Dave's last wave in his role. He's moving to a new part of Toyota. He's moving to Colorado to do regional-based education, internal education versus external education.
He just likes weed. That's all it is.
Well, probably. But I got a hold of him, and we did, I think, a total of like a 45-minute walkthrough of the Prius, from the external, just sheet metal stuff, into the engine bay, talking about specifically what changed with HSD system, and then on the interior, talking about everything that changed on the interior. So broke it down into 3 different videos, so it's consumable. So I would suggest that you check that out. That'll answer a lot of your questions about the 2016 Prius.
Search Prius Chat on YouTube, or go to priuschat.com and look for the Gen 4 forum. They're at the top, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's
and I did
important.
real quick. I wanted to show
settle.
off my new cup.
Oh, they bribed him.
I got to drive the RAV4 hybrid as well. I kind of mentioned it, and They put some really warm shrimp in here to begin with. A little bit disappointing.
It was probably stocked full of coupons to the local strip club.
How did you know?
Was. Keyword
Even in
was.
Laguna Beach and all their famous strip clubs.
And if anybody knows where Danny was, that's sort of a joke because there aren't any strip clubs there. None.
Because you've tried to seek them out on previous trips?
Because I grew up there. I know that place.
Well, thanks for having me on as a guest, everybody.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Right.
Great.
Whatever.
Let me really quick go to Patrick to do your shout-outs because I know you have to leave momentarily.
All right, thank you. I am with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association. You can find us at oeva.org, and we're on Twitter and Facebook and Paperly. Check us out. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick. Cooper, well, we'll get to you at the end. Paul.
Just going to plug Boulder Hybrids again. Anybody in the mountain regions that has a hybrid or electric vehicle, need service, repairs, maintenance, give us a call or check out our website, boulderhc.com.
And I just want to thank Paul because I called his cell with like some random question. And Paul's like, oh, yeah, oh, here, let me look. All of a sudden, I'm helping a friend in Massachusetts with a somewhat related to what Paul does, with an advanced tech car question. So, I've known this about Paul for years, but if you're anywhere near Boulder or you just want to talk to somebody who really knows what they're doing, boulderhc.com, Paul Guzik's the man. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Oh, Tony.
I don't really have anything to plug. The Facebook page, go to facebook.com/whatdrivesus. If you haven't liked us yet, what the hell is wrong with you? And if you have, then
Good comeback, my man.
yeah, if you've already liked us, then start another account and like us again. Bribe 3 friends to like us.
Tony, that was beautiful. That
Mhm.
was beautiful. Mark?
Just plug our group, the Waterloo Regional Voltec Group, WR Voltec, on Twitter and Facebook. We hit 400 followers this week on the Twitter feed, so that was a milestone for us.
Wow.
Thank you, everyone.
Yay.
You've got some
Wow.
great content through there, Mark. Thank you. You've kind of opened up a new world, a new angle into the alt car community that I hadn't been privy to before. So thank you.
No?
Yeah,
You're quite
between Mark and Patrick, that's about 2/3 of my news reading every week. So, I'm so glad.
And your
to be on
local
a
trivia.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be on a show with those guys. So, thank you both. Cooper, do we plug it again?
Sure. PriusChat.com. If you, I know you're very interested in the Prius, and there's no way I could have answered everything today. So check out PriusChat.com. We've got an immense amount of posts going on. I've been kind of checking while we've been doing it. I've actually never seen so many notifications come through on my Prius Chat account as they did today.
That's great.
Yeah, it's been a big day for us. So thank you to all my moderators, especially the folks like Tony who have been a big participant in all this so far. Also check out the Prius Chat shop if you have any Prius accessory needs. That's priuschat.com/shop. Let us know that you heard about us through the What Drives Us podcast, and we'll send you a free decal. A Prius Chat decal, not a What Drives Us decal, sorry.
Wah, wah, wah. Oh, that's sad. I was hoping to get a free What Drives Us decal.
Sorry.
Maybe next
our budget is so huge and all.
Yeah, I know. Well, you got that coffee mug.
If you order from the Prius Chat shop and say you heard about What Drives Us and mention Danny's mug, he will send it to you.
I will say this is the best mug I've ever gotten from Toyota. Usually their mugs are pretty forgettable, but this one's nice. Just to rub it in your face a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. And
Well, it
available.
does say
for the next-
RAV4 Hybrid, which is nowhere near as good as the RAV4 EV, so even the mug.
If I'm able to be on next week, I'll definitely talk about the RAV4 Hybrid because it's worth talking about.
Well, that's a threat we're going to hold you to, Mr. Cooper.
I said if.
There
Oh,
you go.
boy.
As always, I want to thank Michael Mannering for our theme music. You can visit him at manthing.com. Follow us on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Slacker, on God knows what they're called. But on your favorite podcatcher, subscribe, get us updated automatically. Of course, What Drives Us Central is whatdrives.us. That's whatdrives.us. Download the show, stream it there in audio form and video form. Get the links that we post for all of our news stories. This week, no linky. But next week we'll be back again with some links. So thank you, Apple, for doing that before I wanted you to. That was very nice. I can't gesture with the phone. And
Early discharge of the
I'm
song there.
so over this. Okay. So that's it. Thank you, everyone. Download us next week and find out what drives us.